I was talking to my cousins recently and we randomly got to ranking our favorite Disney movies. I felt so validated that their top 3 were also my top 3, but then I remembered we grew up on the same VHS tapes, so we all had the same nostalgia. I'll let you guess what the other 2 movies are, but putting us aside, I feel like The Jungle Book really doesn't get the props it deserves. Disney and Andy Serkis both adapted Jungle Book in fake live action back in 2016 and 2018 respectively, but beyond that, nobody ever talks about the 1967 version. Why? It's obviously the superior version. All I hear is Lion King this, Aladdin that, and both are classics to be sure. But I'm just saying, man, put some respect on my boy Baloo. For a bit of personal background, I'm something of a nature lover myself. The great outdoors and all that. Not quite a tree hugger, and I promise you'll never see me chaining myself to a land excavator. But I do support the trees.
Trees. So tasty.
Can't stand insects though, but definitely love forests and green spaces. Actually, get me a gyrosphere and we're in business. But let's get back on topic. I have a bad habit of drifting. Like a lot of men, the visual aesthetic is always my starting point, and nobody did it like Disney in the 2D era. I mean, just look at it.
Perfection.
This movie in particular is very likely my favorite setting of any animated film of its time. Sometimes I'll throw on this movie just to hang out there, and I know it sounds weird, but I would 100% take a slice of life show set in this jungle.
You said you wouldn't tell anyone, you liar!
Oh wait, they did that already, didn't they? Yeah, Jungle Cubs was awesome. Next step, Jungle Book VR, and I'm all in. If by some miracle you love animation but haven't seen this, the basic premise is that Bagheera, who is a bougie old head panther, stumbles across Mowgli as a baby, and clearly there's a situation that forced his parents to abandon him in a wrecked boat. Bagheera does not eat Mowgli, but rather takes him to a pack of wolves who he hopes will raise him. The wolves, who also didn't eat him, took him in and brought him up as one of the pack. There is no speciesism here. Is that even a word? I'm making it a word. They made my boy feel at home. And years later, his animal family was forced to kick him out because he turned 18 and needed to stop freeloading and get a job. Wait a minute. Sorry, wrong script. They kicked him out because Shere Khan the tiger was back on their side of the jungle and would
surely kill the boy and all who try to protect him.
I was rewatching this recently, and after I got over how good it looks, my adult brain kicked in to fight my suspension of disbelief. Be honest. When you watch this scene close to the start of the movie, when Bagheera drops Mowgli off with Rama and Raksha, tell me this doesn't look like lunchtime for the pack. I did a bit of research so that I'm not completely speaking out of my butt for several minutes. While it might not be explicit in this film, the law of the jungle and other interpretations of this property prohibited the animals from participating in man-killing because there would be serious and violent repercussions if the animals harmed humans. There was a common understanding that the animals were forbidden from hunting or eating men.
There are no pacts between lions and men.
Shut up, Brad. Getting back to the focus of the video, I just love Mowgli's innocence when Bagheera was explaining the threat of Shere Khan to him and why he has to leave the jungle.
And Shere Khan is not going to allow you to grow up to become a man? Just another hunter with a gun?
We'll just explain to him that I'd never do a thing like that.
You sweet summer child. As a kid, I never quite understood why Bagheera was such a wimp. He's a whole Black Panther, but he seemed to be afraid of everyone. Actually, let me check something real quick. Are jaguars afraid of giant snakes?
Most creatures would see the danger developing and think twice before stepping into the trap, but not the jaguar. He doesn't care about danger. His blood is up and he means business, and so he goes after the giant reptile.
Cool. Got it. But as much as Bagheera was the level-headed character needed in this situation, he always had such condescending dad vibes that did not endear him to me.
So you can look out for yourself, can you? So you want to stay in the jungle, do you?
Yes, I want to stay in the jungle.
Now, for the last time, go to sleep. Fine teacher you are, old Iron Paws.
Oh, thanks, Bagheera.
Tell me, after you knock your pupil senseless, how'd you expect him to remember the lesson, hmm?
Actually, that was more like uncle vibes than dad vibes, let me correct that. But from a storytelling perspective, when lining up a meeting with Baloo, who was everyone's drunk uncle, you had to provide some contrast, so I get it. Bagheera had to be a stick in the mud, and this trope of pairing a straight man and a buffoon is basically as old as cinema. Maybe. Probably. I think it is. Moving on. Back to the visuals and setting. I know this is supposed to be a dangerous jungle and all, but if we don't count Kaa and Shere Khan, the place was pretty chill, honestly. Okay, King Louie was a menace as well, but he kinda had his own thing going on in that corner of the jungle. Apes and monkeys are strong, yes, but these guys were more of a nuisance than a genuine actual threat. I'd really be down for a what-if story showing what would have happened if he was actually taught how to create fire. Would he burn the whole place down, or would this have been the start of a Planet of the Apes Jungle Book edition? That's the kind of content Disney should focus on, rather than rehashing old tired properties into fake live action, but I guess we'll never know, because Disney is not going to do that. So the old head in me is about to strike again. The thing about this old films and shows that always gets me is you meet some of these characters for such a short time, but it feels like you know basically everything about them. You know where they're from, you know where they're going, you know how they relate to everyone else, and it feels so organic. Sounds really simple, but there are shows I watch today where after 2 seasons, I still don't know who these characters are. You get quantity in screen time, but not so much quality in storytelling. Here, however, Baloo meets Mowgli, and within a few minutes, he says this.
Baloo, I want to stay here with you.
Certainly you do.
And it doesn't feel out of place because Baloo is so well fleshed out, and their little interaction is so organic. Just good stuff. Really impressive. And ultimately, when Baloo comes around to agreeing with Bagheera, the betrayal that Mowgli feels is really palpable. It has the emotional weight of a breakup, and you genuinely understand where both sides are coming from.
Just like my gold Bagheera.
Now, just a minute. That's going too far. Hey, Mowgli, where you going?
Now, I'm not a musical person, but Bare Necessities is one of my favorite Disney songs. Backing up a little before we talk about it, and I might be full of it right now, but Colonel Hattie's scene was very interesting to me in contrast to this. He runs a fake, overly serious military, and he marches his troops excessively against their will.
March, march, march. My feet are killing me.
I'm putting in for a transfer to another herd.
Silence in the ranks!
I found this an interesting contrast to Baloo's philosophy of focusing on the bare necessities. I'm probably reading into it because I've been in the rat race for a long time. I wouldn't be surprised if this duality wasn't at the forefront of thematic exploration for the writers. While I need a lot of discipline in my life like Colonel Hattie, and being an adult largely involves doing things we don't want to do but have to do, I can also highly identify with drunk Uncle Baloo. Finding out that I can live without stuff and consequently going along not thinking about said stuff that I can do without is really good advice actually. It's good for you psychologically, it's good for your blood pressure, and it's just great for your wallet. Thank you for listening to my TED Talk. Now remember to drink water and mind your own business. Nah, but seriously, it's a really relevant lesson today. Can you eat? Is there a roof above your head? Are you in good health? Good. You don't need Fendi, you don't need Prada, you don't need all this other nonsense you see online. But ultimately, I think there's a sweet spot between Hathi and Baloo's philosophies. It's good to have the work ethic and discipline, but you need that counterbalance of chill so that the hard work doesn't consume you. Mowgli is a cool kid. There's not too much to him other than genuine innocence, curiosity, and a love for adventure, which are all things that speak to my childhood experience. It's always fun when kids get to have a ball discovering the world around them. And moving on from him, I know I sounded like I hated Bagheera, but honestly, I can't help but admire his level of laziness and chill. He'd just sit there in the tree and judge everyone below like he was better than them. But on a side note, I like how these animal-themed cartoons just run with the notion that the good carnivores source their food ethically, so you can't show them actually hunting or eating. The optics wouldn't be great if you saw Mufasa chewing on a gazelle, you know? And speaking of violent carnivores, we can't not talk about the main villain of the film, Shere Khan. He's one of the most intimidating Disney villains to date. I just watched Puss in Boots 2, which will further date this video, but the big bad wolf in that was the closest to Shere Khan that I've seen in any animated film.
Well, well, if it isn't Puss in Boots himself.
Khan has this really calm, intimidating demeanor that you get from characters like Homelander that can switch at any moment. It's the suspense while building up the inevitable viciousness that gets you. Even Mowgli, who tried to be brave in that moment, eventually succumbed to the intimidation and fear. This is the kind of villain you love to hate, but they elevate the stakes so high that once they've been overcome, you feel a really rewarding sense of relief. Tied to Shere Khan were these vultures. They were a really necessary component in the final confrontation, in both ensuring that Mowgli survived, as well as adding a bit of levity to the scene that could be really scary for the kids.
Punch and blow!
Stay out of this, you mangy fools.
Yeah! Miss me a mile, he did! Yeah! Put his freaking whiskers! Yeah, he's a blooming pussycat, he is!
Look behind you, chum.
Now, when researching this movie, I stumbled on The Jungle Book 2 from 2003, which up until this point, I honestly had never heard of. It was a jaw-dropping moment for me because one of my top 3 Disney films had a sequel, and I had never heard of it in 20 years. I will not dedicate much time to it, but I'll say this. In my opinion, it's the quintessential Disney sequel. The usual disappointing sequel for sequel's sake. I saw a lot of love for it online, which was a little disappointing for me honestly, because some people were saying it's better than the original, but I imagine it was the entry-level point to the property for a lot of those people. Or we just have different tastes, which is also fine. But I found it repetitive and very unimaginative. It felt like a slightly modern look at the previous film that emphasized all the really popular elements of the original, but to an embarrassing and almost exploitative degree. I wasn't a fan of the voice actor changes or the new score, which all sounded like generic Disney TV content. But if I can give this film any credit, I'll say that the art direction in some scenes was good, and Shere Khan and the vultures were also used as well as they were in the original. Unfortunately, that's where my praise ends. I was definitely curious about what happened in the jungle after Mowgli left, but they really didn't have anything new to say in the sequel. It was honestly even a little creepy how obsessed Baloo was to get Mowgli back. And with the current social climate around Disney, that particular aspect of the sequel will not do them any favors. At best, Baloo was just a little pathetic. That said, I can't recommend the original 1967 version highly enough. It's the only Jungle Book film you need to watch and let your imagination fill in everything that came after. If you've seen any of these films, let me know your thoughts, and if you enjoyed the 2003 sequel, I'd especially like to hear what you liked about it. But that said, thanks for watching and see you in the next one. Peace.
You eat ants?
You better believe it.